What's up, guys? Thanks as always for supporting the show. It would mean a lot to me if you would take a second to scroll down and hit that subscribe button so you don't miss any more of our videos. Also, make sure you follow us all over social media so you don't miss any of our content or show announcements. Golden State, Denver. Golden State goes on a huge run in the late third quarter, early fourth quarter that puts them up by 11. All of the role players were making plays. Moses Moody was awesome in this stretch. Hit a bunch of key jump shots. Gary Payton was scoring on cuts. He had a couple of buckets on cuts. He had a huge corner three right in front of his bench there in the left corner. They forced turnovers. They got out in transition. Kyle Anderson had this like crazy, nifty driving up and under finish on the right side of the basket. Buddy Hield hit a big corner three out of the left corner. Brandon Pajemski hit a big pull-up jump shot against Jokic in a deep drop coverage. Like, everybody was making plays. It was beautiful basketball. And by the way, for all the guys that have have wondered why I've been talking about needing a trade, of bringing in a reliable secondary offensive player, this is really why. The Warriors are pretty fucking good when they score the basketball. When guys that are not Steph Curry can score the basketball. There were a lot of self-created plays in that sequence. Moses Moody hit a three coming off of a dribble handoff out of the right corner where he just rose up on the move when his man kind of went underneath the screen and he rose up and knocked it down. That's more or less self-created. Kyle Anderson snaking through the lane and going up and under and finishing a layup, that's more or less self-created. Brandon Pajemski hitting a jump shot against a drop coverage, that's self-created. Gary Payton hit a shot coming out of a dribble handoff in the right corner in the fourth quarter. We hit like a left-handed floater in the lane. That's a self-created shot. When guys on the Warriors are capable of creating and making shots for themselves, it makes them look a lot better because they have such a great defense. It allows them to cover for a night where Steph Curry doesn't necessarily have the most efficient scoring night, right? But then they're very inconsistent, and when those players suddenly go cold, it becomes a problem. Like the final sequence of this game, when the Warriors were down 2, Steph gets denied. Denver successfully denies him the basketball twice. And so it ends up being a Kuminga drive that goes nowhere and an Andrew Wiggins drive that goes nowhere. It would be a luxury to have consistent self-created baskets that come off of Steph Curry. That's why that concept has been something that myself and many others have been harping on all season, because like it's not always going to be the way it was at the start of the year. There are ups and downs. There are stretches where guys go cold. Sometimes you do play bad basketball for a couple of weeks and you drop 5 games in a row, and you can make those stretches shorter and you can extend your good stretches by bringing in more consistent offensive production. It's why we've been harping on that, right? But Denver was down by 11 with 6 minutes left. Again, in large part because of that consistent shot creation from other Warriors. And then Denver just started to methodically work their way back into the game through the strength of their superstar, Nikola Jokic. It started with him right in the middle of the floor against Trayce Jackson-Davis. Just hits a couple of easy face-up jumpers right in his face. There was a really nice pass that Russell Westbrook threw to Michael Porter Jr. in that stretch too, where they ran a little off-ball action. They ran it twice. The first time they ran it with Russ threw a rifle pass. Moses Moody had his back turned, hit Michael Porter right in the hands, goes up and dunks it. They tried running it on the very next possession, and Kyle Anderson kind of snuffed it out and got a block. But they got a big bucket there on the MPJ curl off of the Russ pass. There was a Jokic give and go off of a pump fake where he just kind of dribbled into like a shot, like pump faked it. The Trayce Jackson-Davis like jumps off of his feet, gives up the ball, and then just cuts behind it, gets the ball right back and lays it up. And remember, that's the threat of the jump shot, which is so important for Jokic. Earlier in the same half, he had another pick and pop with Jamal Murray on the left wing, pops above the break, pump fake. Trayce Jackson-Davis leaves his feet, just lumbers down the lane and gets a layup. That's such an important part of his offense. And again, like last year, when his jumper wasn't on, he got 1.06 points per spot up, 1.28 points per roll or pop. This year, 1.36 points per spot up and 1.36 points per roll and pop. So like significantly more off-ball scoring and gravity from Jokic just by him getting that jump shot back on track. And again, it's not always going to manifest with him making jump shots. It's going to manifest with him getting easier opportunities around the basket to either score or play make for his teammates off of the attention that his jumper can bring. So gets that give and go. That cuts the lead to 5 with 4 minutes left. Then they go to this just right block post up, and they ended up getting 2 buckets for Aaron Gordon out of this. But the first one, just cuts right off of it. Jokic hits him. Aaron Gordon gets a dunk. That cuts it to 4. Jamal Murray was getting hunted by Steph Curry down the stretch of this game. We're going to talk about it in a minute. He gets a big block on Jonathan Kuminga at the rim, runs out to the other end, draws a blocking foul. That cuts it to 2. Then Jokic gets Steph in a transition cross match on the right side of the floor. And as he dribbles into Steph wants to get scrammed out of the switch. So he turns and runs to go guard somebody else and just hopes that another Warrior will run over there and guard Jokic. No Warrior goes and guards Jokic. Jokic just steps into the jumper by himself and ties the game. Then they go back to that exact same post up on the right block. The very second Kyle Anderson comes over to double Jokic, just feeds it over the top to Aaron Gordon. Aaron Gordon gets another bucket. Now it's 117 to 115. And again, this is where I want to kind of switch gears over to the defensive end of the floor, because one of the things the Nuggets did, throughout the game, they were bringing Jokic up to the level of the screen and all the Steph Curry actions, and then they were running him in a deep drop against some of the lesser players, like if he was defending a screening action with Gary Payton coming down the lane, or if he was defending a screening action against, Brandon Podziemski coming down the lane. But the Warriors were getting a lot of really good stuff just based on the fact that Steph was bringing Jokic out to the level. Even though Steph didn't have a great scoring game, he had a great playmaking game. And a big part of that was him bringing Jokic up to the level. So Denver starts switching everything down the stretch of this game. And so Steph decides to start going at Jamal Murray. And this has been a recurring theme for Nuggets fans. Jamal Murray's been getting cooked at the end of these games, and it's been a huge problem for them. But he did a much, much better job. Again, a lot of times when we talk about issues with these teams, it's oh, this team needs this, or this guy can't do that. And it's a lot of times the solution is just do better. Jamal's getting killed at the end of these games. I've seen them win the title where he holds up better in those situations, where he can make defensive plays like that block on Jonathan Kuminga at the rim. Sometimes you just got to sit in a damn stance, slide those feet, and make a damn play on the defensive end of the floor when they're trying to go at you, right? It's such an important part of overcoming your weaknesses as a basketball team, is just getting the guys that are the weakness in whatever that area is and just getting them to do better. And again, Steph hit a little turnaround jump shot on him where he drove along the right lane line and spun over his right shoulder and hit a little jump shot, but he got stops the rest of the possessions. They went at Steph 5 times, Steph went at Jamal Murray 5 straight times down the stretch of that game, and they ended up generating 1 basket out of it. And then on the final 2 possessions, they successfully denied Steph the ball entirely, which forced Jonathan Kuminga and Andrew Wiggins to try to make something happen, and he couldn't make anything happen. So the Warrior offense stalled out in large part because Steph wasn't getting clean dribble penetration on Jamal Murray. Steph was settling for some tough pull-up jump shots, having to pick up his dribble in the mid-range, and Jamal just did a good job. Got the stops that he needed. And that really was the story of the game for me last night as I watched that matchup. We're talking about 2 teams here that have the same major weakness, which is beyond their superstar. They don't have reliable shot creation. Now, obviously, Denver has higher profile players, right? Guys that have better reputations than the secondary shot creators for the Warriors. But guys like Jamal Murray haven't been playing well this year. So, the same issue is there for Denver, which is if it's not Jokic, there's not a lot of consistent offense that they have on this roster. But the difference is Jokic is playing at the level of a top-tier superstar, the best player in the league, and Steph Curry is not. Jokic was able to make stuff happen for his team anyway, with no one else able to hit shots. Steph was not. Jokic had 38 points. Steph Curry had 24 on 23 shots. And again, Steph also had 11 assists. He had a great playmaking game. Steph did a lot to unlock the offense. But I don't think even Warriors fans would act like that was a top-tier superstar Steph game. And that's really the thing. Steph has had some really good games this year against some really good teams. He's outplayed some stars. He outplayed Shai Gilgeous-Alexander in a game. He outplayed Jason Tatum in a game. He's outplayed guys, and we've seen what it looks like. Golden State can beat the Thunder. Golden State can beat Boston. But it depends on that version of Steph. They didn't beat Boston or beat OKC with Steph where his average is this year at 22.6 points per game. They beat those teams when Steph was able to reach that level. And that's the thing. It's Steph has had some really good games this year, but he's averaging 22.6 points per game for the season, and he was right around that number for the tail end of last season. The scoring volume has been down for a really long time. The teams are really loading up on him. And again, in the past, teams were really loading up on him in 2021, and he averaged, 32 points per game because he was playing like the best player in the world at that point. Now, I'm going to say the exact same thing that I said as it pertains to LeBron, right? Like, I don't think these guys are over. I don't think the run of these guys is over. I think that they have more good basketball in them, but they just have to find a way to play better basketball. And as long as they continue to play like this, it's going to be really hard for their teams to overcome their shortcomings, right? The Lakers have shortcomings in terms of their athleticism on the perimeter, which the Warriors don't. But the Warriors have issues with shot creation off of Steph, which the Lakers don't. They have tons of guys that can run offense, right? We're going to talk about that later when we talk a little bit about Spencer Dinwiddie, because I find his success in Dallas to be pretty fascinating as it pertains to where he kind of slotted as a shot creator compared to where he was with the Lakers, right? Like, the bottom line is these teams have glaring flaws. The Warriors don't have reliable shot creation beyond Steph, and the Lakers don't have perimeter athleticism. And right now, LeBron James and Steph Curry are not doing enough to overcome that. And like, I get that it's tough. And I get, for the record, I still believe these teams are worth investing in. But at this point, until whatever change is made, the only thing that can really remedy this is like Steph's got to get back to the point where he's averaging 28, 29 points per game on over 60% true shooting. And until he does that, it's going to be really hard for this team to beat the good teams that are in the Western Conference, and they're dropping some games right now. And again, with Jokic, it's the exact opposite story. Like, he's overcoming a lot of these issues because he's playing better basketball than anyone else in the world is at this point. He's methodically walking teams down at the end of games, getting whatever the hell he wants for even, like, he's creating makeable shots for players that have their issues. If Aaron Gordon's got to shoot spot up threes all night, it's going to be an issue. But if he's just catching and dunking off of cuts, it's going to work. You know, like, obviously, in order for the Nuggets to get to that top tier level, they're going to need Jamal Murray to return to form. They're going to need a lot of things to kind of change in the way guys have been playing to start this season. But in terms of floating the ship over the course of the regular season and kind of maintaining where they need to be, Jokic right now is allowing them to make up for that, and they're playing better basketball right now. Again, like, that's when it almost always just comes down to, like, how well are your stars playing? I don't really even think it's possible to properly evaluate the supporting cast of teams like this when their stars aren't playing well, because supporting cast players depend on the advantages created by their stars, right? And so, like, it's just one of those things to keep an eye on. Like, again, I don't think it's over. I think both Steph and LeBron will have moments this year where they get back to form, but neither of these teams is accomplishing anything unless they get to April and they're playing at the level they need to be playing at as top-tier superstars in this league.